A pleasant day to all. I am Bianca Gozon, and for this video, I'll be discussing to you my paper entitled Kagandahan, the presence of the Filipino concept of beauty in the portrait of the artist as Filipino. But before everything, what is Kagandahan or beauty? For Kovac, beauty is transcendental, wherein beauty is able to uphold both goodness and truth. There is an infinite beauty such that everything is beautiful. For him, nothing is ugly at all, just something that is less beautiful than the others. When you apply this perspective about beauty, for instance, if you're asked where you can find beauty, you would say everywhere, because that is the point of Kovac. Now, there are a lot of stances regarding beauty, one of which is Leonardo and Mercado's point of view. For him, he perceives beauty as both dualistic and non-dualistic. To differentiate the two, dualistic beauty, which is dominant in Westerners, is rooted from the individualism because it stresses on the individual rather than the art itself. The West perceives beauty in a logical and rational way, rather than in an abstract sense. That is why the art they produce are realistic. While the Easterners do not follow the intricate details of the object, but instead rely on their own interpretation. This is similar to Filipinos' non-dualistic viewpoint on beauty, because it entails that a person is one with art as they justify it through their minds and hearts. As compared to others, us Filipinos consider beauty as our way of conveying the truth. Since we do not compartmentalize our thinking because, as mentioned earlier, Filipinos have a non-dualistic mindset in beauty. A while ago, it was mentioned that beauty can be seen everywhere, and with that being said, it has inspired me to investigate if the Filipino concept of beauty is present or not in the Philippine literary works. I wanted to venture out and choose the script that Nick Joaquin wrote for his play, A Portrait of the Artist as Filipino, for my paper. In Mercado's work entitled The Filipino Mind, he mentioned in the chapter dedicated to beauty that the Filipino concept of beauty or ganda has this interchangeability with its meaning wherein beauty can be used as good or truth. With this being said, I will prove its interchangeability and it can be found in the Philippine literature, more specifically in Nick Joaquin's play, by using Mercado's theory and finding out how Don Lorenzo's painting, who is one of the characters in the play, is a platform in communicating the message to the characters and the spectators of the play. In order to know more about the Filipino concept of beauty as well as Joaquin's play, I will now proceed in delving into the two. In the fourth chapter called Kagandahan, Beauty vis-a-vis Truth and Good, of Mercado's The Filipino Mind, he tackles in detail the interchangeability of the nuance of beauty, which are beauty as truth and good. I will be discussing first beauty as truth. In the chapter, Mercado addresses that Filipinos prefer the aesthetic approach rather than the verbose approach. The aesthetic approach is the usage of poetic and metaphorical words when conversing with someone. If the message that you want to convey is negative, using metaphorical language may enable you to water down its impact. Us Filipinos use these beautiful and flowery words instead of straight out saying our intentions because of the prevalent non-confrontational attitude of Filipinos. Another reason why we use this is because it serves two purposes, which are for diplomacy and for arriving abstract as truth. Since you do not want to hurt the person you are talking to, you don't want to disrespect them. So you use poetic language to address your concern. Mercado cited an example which is flashed on your screen right now. The context here is that a person likes your shirt, and then they would say, does it have a brother or sister? And then the diplomatic way of saying no is that, uli lang lubos ito. Meanwhile, a person may arrive at abstract truth when using poetic words in debates and counseling. With all of this being said, one may argue if the aesthetic approach is really reliable and credible enough in finding out the truth, because after all, logic is perceived to be more useful in obtaining truth. Well, the answer to this is that using beauty is just as important when using the verbose and logical approach, since through the emotions being shown, you'll be able to see what they are imparting. Also, language itself is poetry, and we use language every single day, and I'm using as well right now to tell this information to you. Since we have tackled beauty as truth, let us now proceed to beauty as good. Beauty as good can mean two things. It may refer to either the morality version of good or the physicality of a certain subject. In the Philippines, there are a lot of variations of the word ganda, which is flashed on your screen right now. It is really dependent on how the speaker will use the term ganda, since, for example, I want to say good morning in Filipino, and then in English, and then I would say magandang umaga in Filipino. But its literal translation in English would be beautiful morning. Another case in point would be magandang asal, which in English is good moral, but its literal translation is beautiful moral. When you use beauty as good, really have to understand the context and the message that the person is trying to convey. Because in the Philippines, ganda has multiple meanings such as kind, gracious, friendly, respectable, benevolent, and many more. Now, to understand how the Filipino concept of beauty is seen in the portrait of the artist as Filipino, I will now be discussing the summary of the play. The story mainly revolves around the painting of Don Lorenzo named Retrato del Artista como Filipino and the old Marasigan house where Candida and Paula Marasigan are living with their father Don Lorenzo. The portrait has attracted a lot of attention because after such a long time of not painting, Don Lorenzo painted a masterpiece as a gift to his daughters. This play is set in October 1941 in Intramuros, just before World War II. Nick Joaquin, the playwright, divided the script of the play into 3 sections. In the first scene, Pitoy Camacho visited the Marasigan sisters since he is an old friend of theirs. However, he came to their house with the intention of interviewing their father about the painting since he is a journalist. But Candida and Paula told him that he can't interview him since he has been in his room ever since the accident the previous year. Don Lorenzo fell off the balcony one night. Surprisingly, he was able to see his old co-worker, Tony Javier, in the Marasigan house, since he is a tenant there. Candida and Paula have been renting rooms in the house since they are in need of money and do not have any source of income. Later on, the rest of Pitoy's co-workers arrived and examined the popular painting so that they could write an article about it. In Act 2, Manolo and Pepang tried to persuade their sisters to sell the house by inviting their uncle, Senator Don Perico. When they arrived at the house, they immediately admired the portrait. This plan of theirs backlashed because when Candida and Paula found about it, they mocked their uncle for being such a hypocrite. Because of this, Don Perico said that he has no position in persuading them in the first place. Manolo and Pepang argued with Candida and Paula about the house. The younger sisters told their siblings that their father attempted to commit suicide a while back. And because of this, Candida and Paula got mad at their father before because they could have been rich if he would just become like Don Perico, his old friend. After this, Don Lorenzo worked on the painting and gave it to them as a gift. The sisters called Tony to give them notice that they will be selling the house, but still he attempted to convince the two about selling the painting to the American so that they would have plenty of money. This sparked an argument between the sisters since Paula was getting drawn to Tony's reasoning, and then as a result, Tony and Paula ran away together. In Act 3, Tony entered the room and searched for the artwork since it was not displayed on the wall anymore. He kept on asking Candida its whereabouts, but she does not know as well. Paula went back to their house after being gone for a couple of hours and told them that she slashed and burned the painting so that she could finally feel free. The sisters reconciled with each other and decided that they will stay in the house until the end. Later that night, all of Don Lorenzo's friends stand by the Marasigan sisters' decision against the wishes of Manolo and Pepang. In the end, they were able to stay in the house until it crumbled along with the other establishments in Intramuros during the war. Now that I have discussed a summary of a portrait of the artist as Filipino, I will now prove the presence of it in the Filipino concept of beauty and good and truth in the play. I have divided this section into 2 parts. The first part is the discussion of the portrait and how beauty as good and truth can be seen here, while the second part entails the beauty as truth of the old Marasigan house. The actual image of the painting is not shown in the play, but it was described by the characters throughout the script. In order to have a grasp on what it looks like, I will be elaborating on the imagery being depicted. As described in the play, the artwork was inspired by the Trojan War scene wherein Aeneas was carrying his father Anchises on his back away from Troy, the burning city. However, instead of Don Lorenzo painting the notable personas in Greek mythology, he depicted his younger self as Aeneas, while his current old self is as the man being carried. There were some that found the imagery pretty, while the rest found it creepy. The lines flashed on your screen right now are the characters' dialogues which depict beauty as physically good. Meanwhile, as mentioned earlier, some characters found the painting terrifying due to the way the person in the picture stared at them. The dialogues that are flashed on your screen right now are the opposite of beauty as good, which is pangit. Through these dialogues, one can tell that Filipino beauty as good and its non-dualistic sense as truth and its non-dualistic sense are evident in the play because the characters do not separate themselves from their opinions on the illustration. For instance, those who are artistically inclined and have prior knowledge of the arts like Bitoy, Don Perico, Violet, and Elsa explained why they find the painting magnificent and through their craft and experiences. On the other hand, those who consider the artwork hideous base their feelings on their past, biases, and personal encounters with Don Lorenzo. It is observed that the characters who are not affluent are the ones who despise the masterpiece. Additionally, beauty as truth is shown in the play through the realizations and revelations brought upon by the painting. The dialogues flashed on your screen right now are the lines of the characters who are hinting on the real meaning of the artwork. The artwork of Don Lorenzo is placed in front of the stage because Nick Joaquin wanted for the audience to represent the future civilization that is being portrayed in the portrait. Since Joaquin adores the Spanish occupation, he integrated this in the story of Don Lorenzo's painting. The reason why Don Lorenzo illustrated his younger self as the Spanish-Filipino period of the Philippines and then the westernized Filipino era as the old self because he wanted to convey to the onlookers that the old roots of Filipinos are slowly fading because of the modern American culture that is ruling over the Philippines at that time. Unlike Aeneas, who wanted to start anew by moving past what was left of Troy, Don Lorenzo's past self carried his young self away from the westernized future because he yearned the Spanish-Filipino culture to continuously prevail. Now I will be discussing the beauty as truth in the old Marasigan house, which can be seen in the following dialogues flashed on your screen. Manolo, Pepang, and Don Perico avoided the Marasigan house because as much as they miss the beauty of its old glory, they do not want to be reminded of it since it brings out the underside version of themselves. The older Marasigan siblings want to get rid of their home because they wish to forget about their true conscience in the past wherein they idolized their father so much since he was still successful and bright back then. Meanwhile, Doña Loleng does not allow her husband Don Perico to visit the house because he resorts back to his old self and has slight attacks of poetry. To wrap this all up, the characters who express their stances about Don Lorenzo's painting as well as the old Marasigan house showcase in the play a portrait of the artist Filipino and Mercado's concept of the interchangeability of the nuances of Kagandahan, which are good and true. The playwright Nick Joaquin was able to integrate poetic words and his personal stances in the play since the Filipino beauty is non-dualistic, which means that art and the person are one and the same. Despite the connotation that being logical is a better way in telling the truth, the aesthetic procedure is also a good approach because not only do you feel your own emotions or damdamin through your heart and head, you also try to sense how others may react to it or pakiramdam. Because of the Filipinos' holistic mind, we are given numerous opportunities to bring forth kagandahan, such as good and truth to others without causing too much negativity. Once again, I am Bianca Gozan. Thank you so much for listening to my discussion about my paper entitled Kagandahan, the presence of the Filipino concept of beauty in the portrait of the artist as Filipino.